DayBreak, Chapter 11, Part 2. Blankety-blank walked through Ponyville streets. A receipt floated from an abandoned market stall to dance in the light breeze. The sun hid behind gray clouds, casting a dull orange glow over the town. He was in his usual Earth Pony disguise, white coat, nearly white mane, and pink eyes. He shuffled along in his own slow gait, looking for signs of life. He tasted the air, and caught hints of the bitter fear and desperation that had overwhelmed him in Candlelot. A heavy sadness tingled through the windows and into the streets. Ponyville's resident princess had fallen. There was no denying that fact. The castle loomed overhead, its blue crystal glowing in the orange light lending a slate-purple tinge. He reached up and touched the door handle. The door opened before he could turn it. A tall, yellow-coated young mare walked out, calling over her shoulder.
"If you need anything, you just make your way over to the acre, Spock,"
she said.
"You won't have need of it if you just ask."
Blankety stumbled back as his senses were assaulted. A smooth, warm, sweet sensation poured from the mare. It wasn't directed towards him, but he couldn't help but pick up the overflow. It tickled his nose like cinnamon and ginger. It spread over his tongue like fruit juice. He wiped his eyes when they started to water.
"You okay, sir?"
she asked him. Her head tilted, causing the pink bow in her mane to bob.
"You look like you got hit by a carriage." "I'm fine, thank you, ma'am."
He blinked the tears from his eyes.
"Just winded, I guess." "Okay, if you're sure."
She started to walk away as someone else came up to the door.
"See you later, Spock."
"Yeah, see you." Spike chewed his bottom lip before continuing. "Thanks for helping clean up." Blankety turned to the dragon and concentrated. He wasn't releasing wave upon wave of sweetness. It was rather a bland, gluey taste echoing from Spike's tired eyes, drooping shoulders, and pale scales. Still, through the gloom, there was a subtler flavor, like a light drizzle of mango cutting through the pain, giving him a smidgen of hope. "Blankety blank," Spike said. "I thought you would be still stuck in Candlelot. I didn't think the trains would allow general travel."
"I made my own way."
Blank wet his dry lips with a drier tongue.
"I need to speak with Captain Carrot. Is she back?"
Spike shook his head. "I haven't seen her, but Aunt Yearling said that they were on their way back. You might as well come inside and just wait a while."
"Thanks."
Blankety walked inside while Spike shut the door behind him.
"May I have a cup of tea?"
"Sure, I'll put one on." Spike got down on all fours to make his way to the kitchen. "Mint okay?"
"Of course."
Blank shrugged off his light jacket. He headed for the coat rack placed just beside the door. A hot, jagged pain shot through his hoof. He leapt up and nearly fell on his side in his haste to get away from the heat. He held the burnt hoof with the other and looked at what was surely either a puncture or a blister. It was as pristine as his hoof ever got. Unblemished, save for the usual chipping that he got from walking down the road. Perfectly fine. He looked at where he'd stepped. Missed by both Spike and Applebloom in their efforts to tidy up, a smell-shriveled scrap of paper lay on the floor. He crawled up to it and touched it with the tip of his hoof. And that same pain shot through his leg. He dulled his senses with a quick spell and touched it again. It was hot, but not unbearable. He unfolded it and tried to make out the mangled script. All that remained after being crumpled was the signature.
"Mary Mare."
He frowned. He shut his eyes and focused on the feelings, trying to decipher them without hurting himself. They came from two sources, and the result was jumbled. Anger, rage, pain, suffering, and sadness. He focused on the signature itself, on the pony who had written it. A hint of cookies baking, coupled with the stench of decay. It was a horrifying mix of emotions. He tucked the mangled letter away in his saddlebags and trotted to the kitchen. King Andean Ursagriff walked along the edge of Cantor Mountain alongside his two daughters. The air was clear, free of the noise of riots and angry, scared ponies. He smiled at Stella, with her fuzzy white feathers and fur hopping from rock to rock, stretching her wings.
"This wasn't how I was expecting our first visit to go,"
Corona said in the Griffin language. Andean looked down at his eldest daughter. Her coloration was light brown of her lion half and dark brown on her eagle half. The color was broken by a fiery streak atop her head that tapered down her back, accompanied by a similar flash on each wingtip. She already had signs of greater magic than the rest of their species, even though she was still a few years from maturation. She would be a powerful ruler indeed. It wasn't my wish either, but we must make the best of it. Andean trained his sharp eyes further up the mountain. He could see a series of caves carved into the side, not at all natural. Have you noticed the differences between how our people and theirs act?
"Yes, a few."
Corona twiddled two of her talons.
"They seem nicer. A little stuffy sometimes, but nicer. They try to be polite."
Stuffy? Andean smirked. That, I believe, is completely isolated to the nobility. I've met some ponies who are the absolute opposite of stuffy.
"Like Miss Applejack,"
Stella called out from a small peak.
"She uses funny words like darn, y'all, and shucks."
Yes, exactly. Andean raised an eyebrow. I'm curious as to why you believe them nicer.
They care for the weak. They will not see you as less if you're not as smart or as strong as they.
Andean narrowed his eyes ever so slightly. You believe that we do not care for our weak?
That is not what I mean to say.
Corona scratched one feathery ear.
We care for our sick, yes, and we care for our elderly, but they place great emphasis on friendship.
She tilted her head.
Even with those in lower classes. Isn't Applejack a farmer and also a Lord Mayor?
But they don't place nearly as much of an emphasis on merit as we do. Andean spread his wings part ways to feel the wind on his feathers. Applejack was based on her ability to do a job, I believe. But do not forget those who rose to power through blood, such as the aptly named Prince Blueblood. He scowled. Also, do not mistake their concern for compassion. They understand the ways of manipulation far better than most griffins. They know how to use hypocrisy as a tool, and they will pull thorn from your paw for a favor. Corona turned her eyes down.
I just know that many of our lords bullied their way into power.
Andean sighed. He laid his wingtip over Corona's shoulders. Indeed. That is why the king and queen must be ready to make sure the bullies cannot abuse their power further.
I understand, Father.
Corona's ears drooped.
Until such a time comes that someone can take the power from them.
Andean winced. I was going to leave that last part unspoken.
Da! Come quickly! It's the dragon!
Stella's shout grasped their ears. They flew towards the top of the next hill where the little griffin chick had hopped. Andean leaned on an outcropping, grabbing it with a scarred talon. My word. Shard's gill was rolled up in a fetal position, her tail clutched tightly to her chest. She shivered, rattling her scales and shaking her wings. She opened one eye and looked up at them.
Hey guys. Are you okay?
Stella asked, switching to equestrian. She crawled off of a rock perch and skittered down the green hill.
You look cold. Well, it is fall, after all.
Shard's shoulders jerked as she lifted herself upright.
I was just resting.
Andean crossed the distance with a single flap of his wings, Corona behind him. I thought dragons were warmed by an inner fire.
It's a funny thing. Our warmth is connected to our magic, and our magic is connected to our warmth.
Shard waved a hand.
It's complicated. I was just perusing the cemetery. Got done and started to head back to the castle and got sidetracked. No big.
Andean rested a talon on the hilt of a ceremonial broadsword. What are you doing in the cemetery?
Recording the names of the fallen.
Shard's scale tapped her claw tips together.
If you've got history but don't have the names and faces to go with it, it just becomes dates and numbers.
Stella tugged on her father's feathers. Her wings drooped as her eyelids were low.
I'm tired,
Andean stiffened. He lifted an arm and quickly sat Stella on his back. Rest, Otto. Close your eyes and think of all the questions that you want to ask me later. As Stella nuzzled into his feathers and fur, Andean turned one eye to Shar. That is wise, and I thank you for that service. The sacrifice must not be forgotten. Shardskill rubbed her upper arms.
Was real good too. Until I got to the Unicorn family catacombs. Got this chill that ran through my whole body. Just about put me out of commission.
She grinned.
If I believed in ghosts, I say it was haunted.
Corona tilted her ears back.
You don't believe in ghosts?
Shardskill smiled and shook her head. Interesting. Andean ran his talon through his beard. Surely you acknowledge the existence of whites? Stella yawned from Andean's back.
What are whites? Creepy monsters.
Shard blew a breath of flame which reconfigured itself into a scroll. She skimmed over her notes.
Kinda mix between changelings and wendigos. They take the form of rotten corpses and feed off the terror of people visiting the grave.
She ignited the page and allowed it to travel back to her cache.
Not actually ghosts, not even undead.
Equestrians, minotaurs, zebras, they're all the same. Andean sneered. If you keep your bodies lying around, you'll leave yourself susceptible to white infestations. Will you inform Luna that she might have a problem?
One more top of the pile. What can it hurt?
Shard shrugged.
I'll tell her, but she'll probably have other things on her mind.
Corona clicked her beak.
Why don't you believe in ghosts, Miss Shardscale? Please, call me Shard.
The dragon hauled herself onto her hind legs.
And as much fun as it'd be to haunt a jerk or two, I know where I'm gonna die.
She smiled up at the sky.
I'm getting a star. Heck, maybe they'll even let me have a whole constellation.
She popped her knuckles. You
guys take care. I've got a couple of jobs to take care of. See you.
She flew off, leaving the three griffins on the green hillside. Corona ran her palm along Stella's head as the little sister slept.
Shard is more knowledgeable than she appears.
Andean Ursagurf glared after the dragon. Something to keep in mind for all your future acquaintances, Corona. At least it wasn't an argument of some kind, so it looks like they're getting along. I just hope it stays that way. Anywho, let's get on to our super friendly donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coldhard, J Tinman, Darkside, Gauntlet, and Only One Thing. Zar630, Strix, Raiden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, Crazy Killer 557, Stu Hex, Daspo, Madman Stan, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, RuneScythe 9852, Hudson Norman, Stephen Bingham, Line Guy 12, and many more amazing people. Thank you all very much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.